My name is Rebecca Hayes, and I'm the woman who went viral for screaming, "I saw Jesus in a hospital emergency room." 3 million views in 48 hours. Comments ranged from, "Amen, sister," to, "This lady's on drugs." The truth? I was stone cold sober, clinically dead for 4 minutes. And what Jesus showed me wasn't what I expected. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't comforting. It was a warning. And it's meant for you. I'm 68 years old. I've been a believer for 45 years. I raised 3 kids in the church, buried a husband I loved for 40 years, and volunteered in Sunday school so long they named a classroom after me. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand. I'm not some attention-seeking young woman with a phone and a story. I'm a grandmother. I've lived long enough to know the difference between reality and wishful thinking, and what happened to me 3 months ago was real. It started on a Thursday morning in late September. I woke at my usual time, made coffee, and sat in the chair by the window where I do my Bible reading. I was working through the Gospel of John, chapter 10, where Jesus talks about being the Good Shepherd. I remember lingering on verse 27, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." I'd read that verse 100 times before, but that morning it felt different, heavier, like it was sitting on my chest, waiting for me to understand something I'd been missing. Around 9, I started feeling off. Not sick exactly, but strange. My chest felt tight. My left arm tingled. I told myself it was nothing. Indigestion, maybe, or the coffee hitting wrong. I tried to stand and the room tilted. I grabbed the armrest and sat back down hard. That's when the pain came. Sharp, crushing, like someone had wrapped a band around my ribs and was pulling it tighter and tighter. I managed to reach my phone and dial my daughter, Lisa. She lives 10 minutes away. "Mom, what's wrong?" she asked when she heard my voice. I couldn't answer properly. The words wouldn't come. She hung up and called 911. I don't remember her arriving. I don't remember the paramedics loading me into the ambulance. My next clear memory is being wheeled through emergency room doors, fluorescent lights overhead, voices calling out numbers and terms I didn't recognize. A nurse leaned over me. Young woman, kind eyes, stressed face. "Stay with us, ma'am," she said. "We've got you." I wanted to tell her I was trying, but my body wasn't cooperating. I could feel myself slipping, like standing on ice that's starting to crack beneath your feet. You know it's going to give way, but you can't stop it. Then it did. One moment I was in that emergency room, surrounded by machines and people in scrubs. The next moment, I wasn't. The beeping stopped. The voices faded. Everything went quiet. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of something deeper than silence. I was standing, though I don't remember standing. I was aware, though my body was lying on a table somewhere behind me, and I saw him. Jesus was standing a few feet away, not floating, not glowing like a spotlight, just standing. But the air around him felt different, thicker, charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. His presence filled the space in a way I can't describe. It wasn't overwhelming in a scary way. It was overwhelming in the way truth is overwhelming when you've been living in half-truths your whole life. He looked at me, and I felt completely exposed. Not ashamed, but seen. Every thought I'd ever had, every motive I'd ever hidden, every version of myself I'd shown to others versus the one I'd hidden. He saw all of it, and he wasn't surprised. He wasn't disappointed. He just saw me, and somehow that was both terrifying and comforting at the same time. He didn't speak at first. He just let me take him in. His face was kind but serious. His eyes held something I'd only seen in glimpses during my hardest moments. A love so deep it hurt to look at. Not because it was harsh, but because it was so pure that everything else I'd called love felt like a pale imitation. I wanted to fall to my knees. I wanted to run toward him. I wanted to apologize for every shallow prayer, every distracted church service, every time I'd checked my watch during worship. But I couldn't move. Finally, he spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it filled everything. Rebecca, just my name. But hearing it in his voice undid me. I started crying. Deep, heaving sobs I hadn't cried since my husband died. "Lord," I managed to say, though I don't know if I said it out loud or just thought it. He smiled, and it wasn't the smile I'd imagined from stained glass windows. It was real, human. warm. "You've been asking me questions," he said. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement. I had been. For months, maybe years. Questions about why good people suffer. Questions about why evil seems to win. Questions about whether he still cared about a world that felt like it was falling apart. Questions I'd been too afraid to say out loud in Bible study because they sounded like doubt. "I'm going to show you something," he said. "Not because you're special, not because you earned it, but because I need someone to tell the truth about what they see. And you've spent enough years hiding your questions behind Sunday smiles. It's time to stop pretending." Before I could respond, the space around us shifted. I wasn't in a room anymore. I was standing at the edge of something vast and dark. Not physical darkness, but the absence of something essential. The absence of him. I looked down and saw people. Millions of them. They weren't screaming or burning or being tortured by demons. They were just empty, walking through gray landscapes, passing each other without seeing, calling out without being heard. It was the loneliest thing I'd ever seen. Worse than any fire, worse than any physical pain. They were alone, completely, eternally alone, and they didn't even know it. "This is what they chose," Jesus said quietly. "Not because I wanted it, not because I sent them here, but because they spent their whole lives walking away from me, and eventually, they got what they wanted, a place where I am not." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that couldn't be right, that people don't choose hell, that nobody would willingly walk into that kind of emptiness. But then he showed me something that broke my heart. He showed me moments. A man brushing off a gentle conviction to apologize to his wife, choosing pride instead. A woman hearing the gospel and feeling something stir, but deciding it was too inconvenient to follow through. A teenager sensing God's presence in a moment of worship, then walking out and never thinking about it again. Small choices, everyday choices. Choices that seemed harmless in the moment, but each one was a step away. And after a lifetime of small steps away, they ended up in that gray place. Not because God was cruel, but because they'd built their entire existence around not needing him. "Do they know?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Do they understand what they chose?" He looked at me with a sadness so deep it felt like an ocean. "They do now, but now is too late." I couldn't take it anymore. I turned away from the vision, but he stopped me. "You need to see this," he said firmly. "Because when you go back, and you are going back, people need to hear this. They need to know that hell is real, that it's not a metaphor, and that the path there is paved with a million small decisions to ignore me." He showed me more. He showed me Christians, people who went to church, who sang worship songs, who posted Bible verses online, standing at the edge of that same emptiness. Not because they didn't believe in him, but because they'd spent their lives believing about him without ever truly knowing him. They'd treated him like a lucky charm, a get-out-of-hell-free card, a cosmic vending machine. They'd wanted his benefits without his presence. And in the end, he gave them what they wanted, eternity without him. "How do I tell people this?" I asked, overwhelmed. "How do I make them understand?" He looked at me, and his voice was gentle but unyielding. "You tell them the truth. You tell them that I am not a game. I am not a religious accessory. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And choosing me isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily surrender. It's a relationship, not a transaction. And relationships require presence, attention, and love." The vision faded. The gray emptiness disappeared. I was back in that in-between place with him. "It's not your time yet," he said. "But when you wake up, you'll remember all of this. And you'll tell people. Not everyone will believe you. Many will mock you. But some will hear and some will turn. That's why I'm sending you back." Before I could ask more questions, before I could beg to stay, I felt a pull, violent and sudden, yanking me backward. The last thing I heard was his voice. "Tell them I love them. Tell them there's still time. Tell them to stop playing church and start knowing me." Then I was gasping, choking on a tube in my throat, machines screaming around me, hands pressing on my chest. A voice shouted, "She's back! We've got a pulse!" I tried to speak, tried to tell them what I'd seen, but all that came out was a strangled cry. I saw Jesus. The nurse, the same one from before, leaned over me, relief flooding her face. "You're safe now," she said. But I wasn't thinking about safety. I was thinking about the gray place, the empty faces, the voice that told me to tell the truth, and I knew my life would never be the same. The doctors called it a miracle. 4 minutes without a pulse, 3 rounds of CPR, 1 shock to the heart that brought me back. They used words like lucky and remarkable recovery and talked about how rare it was to survive without brain damage. I nodded and thanked them, but I wasn't thinking about medical miracles. I was thinking about the gray place, about the empty faces, about Jesus telling me to tell the truth. Lisa stayed with me that first night in the ICU. She held my hand and cried quietly, the way she used to cry when she was little and trying to be brave. "Mom, you scared me," she said. "I thought I lost you." I squeezed her hand. "I wasn't lost," I said. "I was exactly where I needed to be." She looked at me strangely, probably wondering if the oxygen deprivation had affected my brain after all. I wanted to tell her everything right then, about Jesus, about the vision, about the warning, but I was too tired, and the words felt too big for the small hospital room. The next morning, a chaplain came by. Older man, gentle smile, tired eyes. He asked if I wanted to pray. I said yes. But when he started with the standard hospital prayer, bless the doctors, guide the healing, grant peace, I interrupted him. "I saw Jesus," I said. He paused mid-sentence and looked at me carefully. "Many people feel a sense of his presence during difficult times," he said in that soothing chaplain voice. "No," I said more firmly. "I saw him. I stood in front of him. He spoke to me. He showed me hell." The chaplain's expression shifted. Not quite skeptical, but careful, measured. "That must have been very powerful," he said. I could tell he was filing this under trauma response or medication side effects. "It was real," I insisted. "It was more real than this room, than these machines, than anything I've experienced in 68 years. He nodded slowly. "Mrs. Hayes, your body went through a traumatic event. Sometimes the brain—" I cut him off. "My brain didn't make this up. Jesus told me to tell people the truth, and that's what I'm going to do." He prayed a quick prayer and left, and I knew he didn't believe me. I didn't blame him. If someone had told me this story a week ago, I probably wouldn't have believed them either. But I didn't have the luxury of doubt anymore. I'd seen too much. 3 days later, I was moved out of ICU into a regular room. My other 2 kids came to visit, Daniel and Ruth, both in their 40s now, both busy with careers and families. They sat by my bed and asked the questions everyone asks. "How are you feeling? What did the doctor say? When can you come home?" I answered their questions, but I could feel the weight of what I really needed to say pressing on my chest. Finally, Ruth asked, "Mom, what happened? I mean, really happened?" "Lisa said you kept saying something about seeing Jesus." I took a breath, because I did. I died on that table and Jesus met me. He showed me hell, and he told me to warn people. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. He's always been the practical one. "Mom, you were under a lot of stress. Your heart stopped. Your brain was deprived of oxygen. It's normal to have vivid experiences under those conditions. This wasn't a hallucination," I said. "I know the difference." Ruth leaned forward. "What did he show you?" So I told them. I told them about the gray place, about the people walking in emptiness, about the Christians who'd spent their lives believing about Jesus without knowing him. I told them about the small choices that lead people away, step by step, until they end up in a place where God isn't. Ruth cried. Daniel looked at his phone. "Are you telling me," he said carefully, "that you think people who go to church can still go to hell?" "I'm not thinking it," I said. "Jesus showed it to me, and he told me to tell people that knowing about him isn't the same as knowing him." The room got quiet. Ruth prayed softly under her breath. Daniel stood and looked out the window. "Mom," he said without turning around, "you've been through a lot. Maybe you should rest before you start making claims like this." "Claims?" I repeated. "Danny, I'm not claiming anything. I'm telling you what happened." He turned back, and his face was tight with something between concern and frustration. "And what do you think will happen when you tell other people? Do you think they'll all just believe you? Or do you think they'll say you're confused? or attention-seeking, or losing your mind. I don't care what they say, I said. Though that wasn't entirely true. I did care, but I cared more about obedience. Jesus told me to tell people, so that's what I'm going to do. Lisa came by later that evening with her teenage son, my grandson Eli. He's 17, the kind of kid who lives on his phone and barely looks up. But when he walked into the room, he put the phone in his pocket and sat down next to my bed. "Grandma," he said, "Mom told me you saw Jesus. Is that true?" I looked at Lisa. She shrugged. "I thought he should hear it from you." I nodded and told Eli the short version. Simpler, less detailed, but honest. When I finished, he sat quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Grandma, I don't really believe in God, or I didn't. But the way you're talking about it, it doesn't sound like the church stuff I've heard. It sounds real." "It is real," I said. "And that's exactly the problem. People have turned it into church stuff, rituals and routines and rules, when it's supposed to be a relationship. Jesus doesn't want your Sunday mornings. He wants your whole life." Eli nodded slowly. "Do you think I'm going to hell?" he asked, and the fear in his voice broke my heart. "I think you're asking the right question," I said. "And that's a start. Hell isn't for people who ask questions, Eli. It's for people who stop caring about the answers." After they left, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. My body ached. My chest hurt. But worse than the physical pain was the weight of what I'd been given to carry. How do you tell people they're walking toward hell? How do you warn them without sounding judgmental or crazy? How do you explain that the comfortable cultural Christianity most people practice isn't enough? That night, Lisa's husband, Tom, stopped by alone. He's not a believer, never has been, though he's always been respectful about my faith. He sat in the chair by the window and looked at me for a long time without speaking. Finally, he said, "Rebecca, Lisa told me what you've been saying. About Jesus, about hell. I don't believe in any of that. You know I don't. But I believe you saw something, and I believe it changed you." I nodded, surprised by his honesty. "It did. So here's my question," he said. "If Jesus is real, if hell is real, if all of this is true, why doesn't he just show everyone? Why make it so hard? Why rely on people like you to spread a message that half the world won't believe?" I thought about that. "Because faith isn't about proof," I said slowly. "It's about trust. If he showed everyone, there'd be no choice involved. We'd follow him out of fear, not love. And he doesn't want fear. He wants us to choose him because we want him, not because we're terrified of the alternative." Tom shook his head. "That's a lot to ask." "It is," I agreed. "But it's also the only thing that matters." He stood to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth," he said, "I hope you're wrong. But if you're right, I hope people listen." The video happened by accident. I didn't plan it. I didn't want it. Lisa had recorded a short clip on her phone the day I was discharged. Just me walking out of the hospital, thanking the nurses, saying I was grateful to be alive. But at the end of the clip, as we reached the car, I turned to the camera and said, "I saw Jesus. And he told me to tell you, stop playing games with your faith. Hell is real, and the path there is shorter than you think." Lisa posted it on social media thinking maybe a few friends would see it. By the next morning, it had 200,000 views. By that afternoon, over 1 million. Comments poured in, some supportive, some vicious, most somewhere in between. "Amen, sister. This is fake. Attention seeker. She's been through trauma, give her a break. God bless you. You're mentally ill." The video kept climbing. News outlets picked it up. Christian blogs wrote about it. Skeptic forums dissected it. Within 48 hours, 3 million people had watched a 68-year-old grandmother talk about seeing Jesus in a hospital parking lot. And I realized, with a mix of terror and awe, that Jesus had meant what he said. He'd given me a message, and now the whole world was listening. The question was, would they hear? Going viral at 68 is not something I ever imagined. I don't understand half the technology my grandkids use. I still write grocery lists on paper, and suddenly, my face was everywhere. Social media, news clips, Christian podcasts, skeptic forums. Strangers were debating whether I was genuine or delusional. Some called me a prophet, others called me a fraud. Most just called me confused. The church I'd attended for 30 years didn't know what to do with me. The pastor, a kind man in his 50s who'd always appreciated my Sunday school work, invited me to lunch the week after the video went viral. We sat in a quiet booth, and he spoke carefully, the way you speak to someone you're worried might break. "Rebecca," he said, "I'm grateful you survived. We all are. But I'm concerned about this message you're sharing." "Concerned how?" I asked, though I knew where this was headed. "It's intense," he said. "You're telling people that Christians can go to hell, that church attendance doesn't matter, that most believers are just going through the motions. That's not exactly an encouraging message." "It's not supposed to be encouraging," I said. "It's supposed to be true," he sighed. "But how do you know it's true? How do you know what you saw wasn't a hallucination, or a dream, or your brain's way of processing trauma?" I looked him in the eye. "Pastor, you've preached for 20 years that Jesus is real, that he speaks, that he reveals truth. Do you believe that? Or is it just sermon material?" He flinched. "Of course I believe it. Then why is it so hard to believe he spoke to me?" I asked. He didn't have an answer for that. Or if he did, he kept it to himself. The meeting ended with a polite agreement to disagree, but I knew what it meant. I was being quietly sidelined. No more Sunday school, no more volunteer roles. I wasn't banned, but I wasn't welcome in the same way anymore. I'd become a liability. Other churches reached out. Smaller ones, hungrier ones, places where people were tired of polished sermons and performance Christianity. I started accepting invitations to share my story. I didn't call them speaking engagements. I called them warnings. I'd stand in front of 50, sometimes 100 people, and tell them what Jesus showed me. Some cried, some got angry. Most just sat in uncomfortable silence. One night, after I spoke at a church that met in a high school gym, a man in his 30s approached me. He was shaking. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, "I've been a deacon for 5 years. I teach men's Bible study, I lead worship, and I don't know Jesus. I know about him, I know the right answers, but I've never actually surrendered my life to him. I've been performing." He broke down crying, and I held him while he confessed years of pretending. That night he prayed, not a formula, not a script, but a desperate, honest cry for Jesus to become real to him. I watched something shift in his face. It was like he'd been holding his breath for years and finally exhaled. The backlash got worse as the video kept spreading. Christian influencers made response videos. Some agreed with me, most didn't. One popular pastor with 1 million followers called my message fear-based and unbiblical. He said I was leading people away from grace and into legalism. His comments section filled with people agreeing, calling me dangerous, saying I needed to repent. I read every comment, and I won't lie. It hurt. I'm human. I don't enjoy being called a liar or a heretic. But then I'd remember Jesus' words. Not everyone will believe you. Many will mock you, but some will hear. So I kept going. Lisa worried about me. "Mom, you're 68. You just had a heart attack. You don't need this stress." She wasn't wrong. My doctor had told me to avoid stress, and I was walking straight into the center of controversy. But I couldn't stop. "Lisa," I said, "if I don't tell people what Jesus showed me, what was the point of bringing me back? I didn't survive just to go back to comfortable Christianity. I survived to warn people." Ruth called one night crying. She'd been at a Bible study where someone brought up my video, and the group had spent an hour debating whether I was mentally stable. "Mom, they were talking about you like you're crazy," she said. "Like you're some hysterical old woman who can't tell reality from fantasy." I let her cry. Then I said gently, "Ruthie, they said the same thing about the prophets. They said the same thing about Jesus." If everyone agreed with me, I'd be worried I was saying the wrong thing. Daniel kept his distance. He didn't call much, didn't visit often. When I asked Lisa about it, she said he was embarrassed. "He thinks you've become a spectacle, Mom. He's worried about what people think." That stung more than the online comments. But I couldn't let his embarrassment stop me. I'd seen too much to stay quiet for the sake of comfort. The hardest conversation came when I visited my late husband's grave. I do that every month. Sit on the bench nearby, talk to him, update him on the kids and grandkids. That day, I told him about the video, about Jesus, about the message I'd been given. "Jim," I said, "I wish you were here. You'd know what to do. You'd know how to say this in a way people could hear. I sat there crying, and for the first time since the hospital, I felt doubt creep in. What if I was wrong? What if my brain had made the whole thing up? What if I was causing damage instead of doing good? Then I heard it, not audibly, but clear as a bell in my spirit. You're not wrong. Keep going. I don't know if it was Jesus or the Holy Spirit or just the memory of what he'd told me, but it was enough. I wiped my face, kissed my fingers, touched Jim's headstone, and walked back to the car. A woman from a podcast called and asked if I'd do an interview. The podcast was big, hundreds of thousands of listeners. We want to hear your full story, she said. Unedited, uninterrupted. Just you and your testimony. I agreed, though the idea terrified me. The interview lasted an hour. She asked hard questions. How do you respond to people who say you're fear-mongering? What do you say to Christians who feel condemned by your message? Do you think everyone who doesn't have a dramatic experience like yours is doomed? I answered as honestly as I could. I'm not fear-mongering. I'm truth-telling. Jesus showed me hell not to scare people into heaven, but to wake them up to the seriousness of their choices. And no, you don't need a dramatic experience. You just need to stop treating faith like a hobby and start treating it like the most important relationship of your life. The podcast went live, and once again, my inbox exploded. Thousands of messages. Some were grateful. Thank you for speaking truth. You woke me up. I realized I've been coasting, and I needed to hear this. Others were vicious. You're a false prophet. You're leading people astray. I pray God silences you. I read them all. The grateful ones encouraged me. The hateful ones reminded me that truth always divides. One message stood out. It was from a woman in her 50s who said she'd been a missionary for 20 years. Rebecca, she wrote, I've spent 2 decades serving God overseas, and your message wrecked me. I realized I've been serving the mission more than I've been serving him. I've been so busy doing work for Jesus that I forgot to be with Jesus. Thank you for the wake-up call. I'm on my knees repenting as I write this. I cried reading that, not because I wanted to wreck anyone, but because I knew Jesus was using my broken, imperfect testimony to reach people. That night, I prayed differently, not asking God to make the controversy go away, but asking him to use it. Lord, if my name being dragged through the mud means someone turns to you, it's worth it. Just don't let me waste this. A week later, Eli, my grandson, called me. Grandma, he said, I've been thinking about what you said, about hell, about knowing Jesus, and I want to know him, not just know about him. Will you pray with me? We prayed on the phone, and I heard him cry as he surrendered his life to Jesus for the first time. Not a religious transaction, a real relationship. When we hung up, I sat in my chair and thanked God. This was why I'd been brought back. Not for fame, not for validation, for moments like this. 2 months after the video went viral, a television producer contacted me. She worked for a Christian network and wanted to do a half-hour special about my story. We think your testimony could reach millions, she said. This is exactly the kind of content that inspires people. I hesitated. Inspiring wasn't the word I'd use for what Jesus showed me. Convicting, maybe. Unsettling. But inspiring? That felt like the wrong frame. What angle are you planning? I asked. She launched into her vision. Soft lighting, emotional music, testimonials from people who'd been touched by my story, maybe some expert commentary from theologians. We want it to feel hopeful, she said. Redemptive. I knew right then we weren't aligned. This isn't a feel-good story, I said. Jesus didn't show me hell so I could inspire people. He showed it to me so I could warn them. There was a pause on the other end. Well, yes, of course. But we can present the warning in a way that's uplifting. I thanked her and declined. After I hung up, Lisa asked why I turned it down. Mom, that could have reached so many people. It would have reached them with the wrong message, I said. They wanted to make it comfortable. Jesus wasn't comfortable. The vision wasn't comfortable. And I'm not going to let anyone turn a warning into entertainment. She didn't argue, but I could tell she thought I was being difficult. Maybe I was. Or maybe I just understood that the gospel isn't supposed to be packaged and sold like a self-help product. Daniel finally called. We hadn't spoken in over a month, and the distance between us felt like a canyon. "Mom," he said, his voice strained, "I need to talk to you about something." I braced myself. "People at work have seen the video," he continued. "They're asking me if you're okay, if you need help, if the family is concerned about your mental health." "And what do you tell them?" I asked. He sighed. "I tell them you've been through a lot. I tell them you're recovering. I don't tell them I agree with you because I don't." That hurt more than I expected. "Danny, I know this is hard for you, but I can't unsee what I saw. I can't unhear what Jesus told me." "Mom, I love you," he said, "but I think you're letting fear drive this. You almost died, and now you're convinced the world is going to hell unless you warn everyone. That's trauma, not prophecy." I wanted to argue. I wanted to make him understand. But I realized in that moment that Daniel was standing exactly where so many people stand, close enough to hear the truth but too comfortable to receive it. "I'll pray for you," I said finally, "and I love you. But I'm not going to stop telling people what Jesus showed me, even if it costs me your approval." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I know," and hung up. I cried for an hour after that call, not because I regretted my choice, but because obeying Jesus was costing me my son's respect, and it hurt. Ruth, on the other hand, had a different response. She started coming to the small gatherings where I shared my testimony. She'd sit in the back, listening, and afterward she'd tell me which parts landed and which needed clarity. "Mom, when you talk about hell, you sound angry," she said one night. "I don't think you are angry, but that's how it comes across. People need to feel that you're grieving, not condemning." She was right. I adjusted my tone. I started every testimony by saying, "What I'm about to tell you breaks my heart, because hell isn't God's desire. It's ours. We choose it every time we walk away from Him, and He grieves every single person who makes that choice." That shift changed how people received the message. Instead of defensiveness, I started seeing tears. Instead of arguments, I started seeing repentance. A man in his 60s approached me after one of those gatherings. He was a retired pastor, and his eyes were red. "Rebecca," he said, "I spent 40 years in ministry. I preached the gospel. I baptized people. I performed weddings and funerals. And I realized tonight that I've been going through the motions for at least the last 20 years. I stopped knowing Jesus and started managing a church. Your testimony woke me up. Thank you." We prayed together, and he wept like a child. "I don't want to waste the years I have left," he said. "I want to know Him again. Really know Him." I held his hands and prayed that Jesus would restore what the locusts had eaten, that the fire he'd once had would be rekindled, that his final years would be marked by intimacy instead of duty. When he left, he looked lighter, like he'd set down a burden he'd been carrying too long. Stories like that kept me going. But the cost kept rising. The church I'd attended officially asked me not to return. Not in those words, of course. The pastor sent a letter saying they felt it was best for everyone if I took some time to heal and reflect before re-engaging with the congregation. Translation: "We don't want you here." I wasn't surprised, but it still stung. 30 years of service, and I was being quietly removed because I'd become inconvenient. Lisa offered to find me another church, but I wasn't sure I wanted one. "Mom, you need community," she said. "I have community," I replied. "It just doesn't look like Sunday morning services anymore." The truth was, I'd found deeper fellowship in living rooms and coffee shops with people who were hungry for truth than I'd ever experienced in a polished sanctuary. Tom, my son-in-law, surprised me one evening. He stopped by unannounced and asked if we could talk. We sat on my porch, and he was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "Rebecca, I don't believe in God. You know that. But I've been watching you these past few months. The way you've handled the criticism, the way you've lost friends and kept going, the way you talk about Jesus. It's not what I expected from a religious person." "What did you expect?" I asked. He shrugged. "Judgment, self-righteousness, the usual church stuff. But you're not like that. You're just convinced, and that's harder to dismiss." I didn't push him. I just said, "Tom, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just telling you what I saw. What you do with it is between you and God." He nodded and left, but I saw something in his eyes that hadn't been there before: curiosity. The following week, I received an email from a woman in another country. She'd seen the video with subtitles and wanted to share her story. "I was planning to end my life," she wrote. "I saw no point in continuing. I had no hope, but I came across your video, and something in your voice made me stop. You said Jesus is real. I decided to give him one more chance. I prayed, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. I'm still here because of your testimony." I read that email 3 times, crying each time. This was why Jesus brought me back. Not for applause, not for fame, for moments like this, when a desperate soul on the other side of the world hears truth and chooses life. My doctor called me in for a follow-up. She ran tests, checked my heart, and smiled. "Mrs. Hayes, you're doing remarkably well. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." I laughed. "I'm telling people about Jesus and making half the Christian world angry at me. Does that count as good stress or bad stress?" She chuckled. "If it's giving you purpose, it's good stress. Just don't overdo it." I promised I wouldn't, though I knew I was already overdoing it by most people's standards. But I didn't care. I'd been given a second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it on safety and comfort. One night, I sat in my chair by the window, the same chair where I'd read John 10 the morning of my heart attack. I opened my Bible to that passage again. "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." I thought about all the people who'd heard my testimony. Some had followed, some had mocked, some had walked away, and I realized that wasn't my responsibility. My job was to speak. Jesus' job was to draw people to himself. "Lord," I prayed, "I don't know how much time I have left, but whatever it is, use me. Break me if you have to. Just don't let me waste a single day." The room was quiet, but I felt his presence. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just near. And I knew, deep in my bones, that he was pleased. Not because I was perfect, but because I was willing. 3 months after I went viral, I'm still here, still breathing, still telling the story. The views on the original video have slowed, but the ripple effect continues. People share it, churches debate it, skeptics dissect it, and every week I receive messages from people whose lives have been changed, not by me, but by the truth I was given to share. Here's what I need you to understand. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to become the viral grandmother who saw Jesus. I wanted to live quietly, babysit my grandkids, tend my garden, and finish my years in peace. But Jesus had other plans. And when he calls you to something, comfort stops being an option. The message he gave me is simple, and it's the same message I'll keep sharing until my last breath. Hell is real. It's not a metaphor. It's not symbolic. It's the natural consequence of a life spent walking away from God. And the scariest part? Most people who end up there never intended to. They just made a million small choices, choosing comfort over conviction, entertainment over intimacy, routine over relationship, and those choices added up to separation. I know some of you watching this don't believe me. You think I'm delusional or lying or seeking attention. That's your right. I can't force you to believe. I can only tell you what I saw. But ask yourself this: what if I'm telling the truth? What if Jesus really did show me hell? What if the comfortable Christianity you've been practicing isn't enough? Are you willing to bet your eternity on the assumption that I'm wrong? To those who do believe me, or at least believe enough to question whether you truly know Jesus, here's what I want you to hear. Knowing about Jesus isn't the same as knowing him. You can attend church every Sunday, memorize scripture, serve in ministries, and still be a stranger to him. Jesus said it himself in Matthew 7, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven. Many will say, 'Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we do miracles?' And he'll say, 'I never knew you.'" That word, "knew," is everything. It's not intellectual knowledge. It's intimate relationship. It's the difference between knowing facts about someone and actually spending time with them, listening to them, letting them change you. Too many Christians have turned faith into a checklist. Go to church, check. Read the Bible, check. Pray before meals, check. And they think that's enough. It's not. Jesus doesn't want your religious performance. He wants you, all of you, your doubts, your questions, your fears, your failures. He wants a relationship where you're honest, where you're present, where you're willing to be changed. And that requires surrender. Daily, uncomfortable, costly surrender. Here's the question you need to ask yourself. If you died today and stood before Jesus, would he say, "Welcome home, my child," or would he say, "I never knew you"? And before you answer too quickly, think about your life. How much time do you spend with him? Not doing things for him, but with him. How often do you sit in silence and let him speak? How willing are you to obey when he asks you to do something that costs you? I'm not saying you have to be perfect. None of us are. I've failed more times than I can count. But there's a difference between failing while pursuing Jesus and failing because you've stopped caring. There's a difference between struggling in your relationship with him and not having a relationship at all. If you're watching this and you realize you've been playing church, stop. Right now. Don't wait. Don't make excuses. Get on your knees and tell Jesus the truth. Tell him you've been going through the motions. Tell him you've been treating him like a religious obligation instead of a living person. Tell him you want to know him, really know him, and ask him to teach you what that means. And if you're watching this and you've never surrendered your life to Jesus at all, hear me clearly. Hell is waiting for everyone who chooses to live without God. Not because he's cruel, but because that's what we're choosing. We're choosing independence over dependence, self over surrender, our way over his. And God, in his mercy, gives us what we want. If we want eternity without him, he'll allow it. But that eternity is hell, not fire and demons, but emptiness, loneliness, separation from everything good. You don't have to end up there. The door is still open. Jesus is still calling. He's standing at the door of your heart, knocking, waiting for you to let him in. All you have to do is respond. Admit you're a sinner. Admit you can't save yourself. Ask him to forgive you. Surrender your life to him, not halfway, not partially, completely. And then follow him, not perfectly, but faithfully. To my family, Lisa, Daniel, Ruth, and my grandkids, thank you for walking this road with me. I know it hasn't been easy. I know I've embarrassed some of you and worried others, but I love you, and I pray that one day you'll understand why I couldn't stay silent. This message isn't about me being right. It's about you being ready. To everyone who's shared my video, who's reached out with encouragement, who's told me my testimony helped them, thank you. Your support has carried me through the hardest days. But more importantly, thank you for taking the message seriously. Thank you for examining your own heart. Thank you for choosing to pursue Jesus instead of just performing religion. And to those who've criticized me, who've called me names, who've said I'm dangerous or delusional, I forgive you. I understand why my message is hard to hear. It's disruptive. It's uncomfortable. It challenges everything we've been taught about easy believism and comfortable Christianity. But I'd rather be hated for telling the truth than loved for telling people what they want to hear. I don't know how much longer I have. Could be months. Could be years. My heart is fragile, and every day is a gift. But I'm not afraid of dying anymore. I've seen where I'm going. I've met the one who's waiting for me. And I know that when my time comes, he'll welcome me home. Not because I was perfect, not because I earned it, but because I know him and he knows me. If you take nothing else from my story, take this. Jesus is real. Hell is real. And the time to choose is now. Not someday. Not when you're ready. Now. Because none of us know when our last breath will come. Don't waste another day pretending. Don't waste another Sunday going through the motions. Don't waste another moment treating Jesus like a religious accessory. Know him, love him, follow him, surrender to him. Let him transform you. And when your time comes, you'll stand before him without fear, because you'll be standing before the one you've walked with your whole life. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And may God open your eyes to see what I saw, so you'll never have to experience it for yourself. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories of people who've encountered Jesus and had their lives turned upside down. And most importantly, don't just watch and forget. Let this message change you, because eternity is too long to get this wrong.